Ooh. Oh, sorry. I've been sleeping on the sidewalk. Crown Jewels next on PLD Projects. What's up, everybody? Welcome back to PLD Project Crown Jewels. I'm your host, PLD, and this is the podcast where I take you through a journey through Queen, every song, every version of every song of the band, of their solo projects, etc., etc. We come up with the ultimate playlist, and we see how these songs rank up against each other. Do they slide into my top 10 Queen-related songs of all time? Multifaceted podcast here. Got some long episodes, some short episodes. This one will be a short one because we only have a couple of versions to listen to. We have three versions this week of Sleeping on the Sidewalk, as I mentioned that in the cold open. We have the album version, as always. We do have a Live in the USA version from 1977 that was released on the 40th anniversary News of the World box set. And we also have an alternate live version, unreleased, Brian May, the Brian May Band, live in Groningen in 1998. All right, let's get into it now. Sleeping on the Sidewalk was written by Brian May. It featured Brian on lead and backing vocals as well as guitar, John Deacon on the bass guitar, and Roger Taylor on drums. That's right. No Freddie on this track, recorded in one take while Freddie was elsewhere. There was a long-standing urban legend that the band didn't even know the tapes were rolling when they recorded this the first time. Brian disavowed us of that in a soapbox of his on his website at one point, saying they did know the tapes were rolling, but it was in fact one take. The backing track was one take. Obviously, a couple of overdubs for the backing vocals. They might have fixed a few things here and there as far as tweak things, but overall, the basic backing track was just done it was just the first take they took. It's a very different kind of song for the band, as you're going to hear. Bluesy, spontaneous, jammy a little bit. It's just not a very typical Queen track. Band just decided to do something kind of completely live, blow it live with a little overdubs, basically just be a rock band. Now, the band played this live a few times during Freddie's life. Though completely honest, I wasn't even sure if that was true for a long time until it was surfaced. It did surface eventually that it was recorded early on in the 1977 tour, very early on, perhaps the first few dates. The band did eventually release a live version of it on the 40th anniversary box set, probably because they didn't want to release any of the other alternate takes. On the alternate take, they didn't release much live on the alternate takes. It was always early versions, edited version, demo version, whatever. But for Sleeping on the Sidewalk, they decided to release a live take, and I'm glad they did, because the live version, which you're going to hear, is features Freddie on vocals. Freddie takes the lead vocals away from Brian for that, so it's definitely a very interesting and unique version of the track. Of course, Brian did play it sporadically during his, especially during the 1998 Another World tour. Not very often, wasn't in the set list very often, but he did take a stab every once in a while, especially if the band was having a good old time. It felt like if the crowd was good, he'd put it in there. They're exceptionally good, rather. I will mention one other time the band did play it was in 2010 when Brian and Roger joined Taylor Hawkins and his side band for the Foo Fighters, the Coattail Riders, in Scala in 2010. I've mentioned many times how much Taylor Hawkins meant to Queen, Taylor, and Dave Grohl, both the Foo Fighters in general. They're like family all together. But Taylor Hawkins specifically was the most family-like. I mean, hell, Rufus is his godfather, so I mean, it meant a lot to them. Rufus also was the one who really kicked them out of their safety net. When Queen performed live, especially post Freddie and especially post 2000, they basically usually would do a greatest hit set. It's one of my few complaints of the live eras of the Paul Rodgers era and the Adam Lambert era, is that it's basically the same set over and over again. They would change up the listing or the arrangements maybe a little bit, but it's the same songs. They didn't go into their deeper cuts, and when they did, they kind of do it a few times and then back off. Did that for the News of the World tour, for example. And now I'll put this out there again. Maybe I shouldn't because I don't know this for a fact. But the scuttlebutt around the time, the rumors, so take these as you will. Your mile may vary. Throw some salt, all that jazz. was that Brian always tended to want to stick to what worked. Roger wanted to be a little more experimental and do stuff, but Brian was pretty much, I want to play the hits and I want to play what the crowd wants. And I mean, they don't owe us anything. They've been a band forever. They give us a lot of music over the years. They don't owe it to us to do it. They can do whatever they want to do, as far as I'm concerned. However, I would love to have seen them dive back into the catalog a few more times. Taylor Hawkins is someone who made them do that now and again. In Scala, with his band, the Coattail Riders, Brian and Roger both had performed on the album in different tracks. They would do those tracks. They did Tenement Funster live, a track that Queen has never performed live ever. Roger performed it on his solo tours, but never with the band. Brian also did Long Away, a song they barely ever got to do. He never really did it live. There was a couple of times he did a verse or so in the acoustic sections of things. But just because Taylor pushed him to do these kind of tracks, and it was great to see. Sleeping on the Sidewalk was one of those tracks done. I would throw it into our alternate live and make it part of the possibilities for a Crown Jewel, because I love Queen with Taylor Hawkins. Unfortunately, I don't have a copy of it. I don't have a full copy of it, I should say. There are snippets online. There's like about a minute long, minute and a half long snippets you can find online. I'll put one of them into our Google Doc so you can find it. But unfortunately, not enough for me to really judge as far as a Crown Jewel goes. You know what I'm saying? All right. But now let's get into this. Now let's get into the listening. How do we do this? I just mentioned the Google Doc. If you look into the show notes, there's a Google Doc with the links for everything we're going to listen to today. And because I can't play it on the air, I can't play it during the recording. I don't want to get struck, etc. I don't deal with the editing, whatever that is. So what I do instead, how I deal with that, is I talk about something. I will tell you the moment to pause this podcast, to go to that Google Doc, click on that link, listen to the song, listen to the version of the song we're going to listen to. Then you come back, and then I'll talk about it a little bit. And we continue that on through all the versions. This time, like I said, only 3 versions. But before we do, I do have some quotes I wanted to give you from the band about the song. I'll give you a little bit of background for it. So before you listen to it, you can hear what they had to say about it. Brian had a couple of long quotes through here. In talking to the BBC in 1983, he said, "That was the quickest song, Sleeping on the Sidewalk. It was the quickest song I ever wrote in my life. I just wrote it down. It's funny because it's one of the ones I'm quite pleased with as well. I'm not trying too hard. It's not highly subtle, but I think it leaves me with quite a good feeling. It was sort of a one-take thing as well. Although I mess around with the take and chopped a lot and chopped it around and rearranged it, but it was basically the first take, which we used. So it's kind of a sloppy feel that I think works with the song, which we would never have dreamed with the previous albums. We always used to work on the backing tracks until they were 1,000,000% perfect. And if they weren't, we'd splice together 2 which were. We'd go to great lengths. But for this album, we wanted to get that spontaneity back in." Roger continued in 1977, said, "We recorded it in one take. It sounds like an old blues track, quick and simple. Brian did some sort of smooth voice on it." Brian talked to Circus Magazine in 1978 and said, "I think we managed to cut through the spontaneity lacking in our other albums. I have no apologies to make for any of our previous albums. We're proud of them, and we wouldn't have let them out if we weren't. But I now feel some may have been overproduced, so we wanted to go with a more spontaneous rock and roll based album. It was nice to do something that didn't need such intensity. For example, with Sleeping on the Sidewalk, we did it in one take because it just seemed right the first time. We like to think of the album as a window on an unguarded moment, not a set piece." In 1997, Brian May was in the studio with Redbeard. It was TJ, and he talked about this even further. He said English traditional recording at that time was everybody had to be sealed off from everyone else. The guitar had to be in this little cubicle. The drums had to be hidden away in this place, which is totally deadened. There's no way that anything should meet except when it gets on the tape. I thought it'd be fun to do the opposite and just set up all in the studio so we can all see each other and hear each other and play, so you won't be able to change anything, but you would get a live feel. Mike Stone was engineering and was very into it and thought, yeah, why don't we do this? That's obviously what people did in the old days and used to work. Why doesn't it work now? So we did it one day, set up just within about a 5-foot radius of each other and played the thing. And I didn't have the song complete at the time. We just had a verse and a chorus. And I said, just try it like this, having played it over to them. And Mike luckily had the tape rolling. The first time we played it through, it had a sort of certain feel. We went and listened to it in the control room and it sounded great. And we thought, that's exact. We all loved it and thought it sounded natural, had a nice feel to it. The sounds were warm. You could feel that everything was in the same room. So we thought, great, let's go and do it now and get it right and perfect, and we'll have it on tape. So we spent about, I would say, 2 days solid trying to get the thing better, and it never got any better. It got worse and worse. It got turdier and changed some of the sounds. We made it worse and somehow just lost all its soul. We went back, listened to the first take, and we thought, it had it then, it doesn't now. To this day, I don't know what happened. We just destroyed it. Finally, on his official website in 2003, he mentioned, It just was impossible to recreate the magic of the first take. It was exceptional. I hadn't even explained the structure of the song to Roger and John. We just went in and played it as a guide, treating it as a bit of fun, playing with a lazy kind of blues feel, which is what I wanted. As soon as we heard the take back, we were astonished. Everyone thought we must have been practicing it for ages. So then, after discussing the structure of the whole song, we went back in and started taking it seriously. We played all the right notes, but the feel was never like the first one. That relaxed feel could only be approximated to. It's one of those examples of a moment caught on tape. You cannot recreate a moment. As soon as you're trying to do this, by definition, you'll fail. So, well, I constructed the entire song of that first take. In those days, there are no Pro Tools. We had to duplicate the multi-track tape and cut it up and reassemble it with a little ingenuity. Very small bit of crafty overdubbing from me and sticky tape. I'm not joking. The backing track was then ready to sing on. So there it is. As we're revisiting recordings, no, we have never felt the urge unless there's some new specific purpose for doing so. I always regard the original moment mixes as something special, even with their imperfections. Another example of a moment. All righty, it is now time. I'm going to have you hit the pause button, go to the Google Doc, and click on the album version. Listen to that, come back, and we will talk about it. Go now. 1, 2, 3. There you have it. Like Brian said, Brian just counts them in with a dirty lick, and it's a very loose arrangement, very unlike anything Queen has ever released. I'm not sure if they've ever jammed out like this before, or maybe not recorded it, but it really feels like Brian said, it's sloppy. It's very loose. It's got this messy kind of feel to it, but it wouldn't feel right if it was perfect. It's not that kind of song. Brian does a great job with the vocals. Is just kind of a laid back kind of blues track. Doesn't have to get too rocky, quote unquote rocky with it at all. He just kind of just sings along and riffs along. Roger and John really are the keys, I think, to this. That's why the feel works. Is Roger's got this nice little kind of hesitant beat, kind of like shuffling kind of through. John works the bass magic. I love the bass in this. Nothing specific, like just I like his tone and the way he kind of runs through the notes here and there. It's not much to really say. It is what it is. It's kind of a not like a song doesn't build anywhere, doesn't go anywhere, but it is very good for exactly the kind of thing it's supposed to be. A very nice bluesy track. All right, there you have it. Let's listen to the next version, live in the USA, 1977. It was only confirmed. The only confirmed venue we have is the Portland Civic Center on November 11th, 1977. Was this date? I don't know. We never heard a bootleg version of it. We just know from a set list and from a review, I believe. It is said they did it a couple times, like I said previously, but we don't really know because the band never put it on there, which actually surprises me. And I wish they did. I wish they had that kind of attention to detail. They usually are such detailed-oriented people with their music. Sometimes their liner notes are a little less than desired. It wouldn't take much to figure out which date is this from, which venue is this from. Instead, it's just live in the USA in 1977. All right. Well, go to the Google Doc, listen to the live in the USA 1977. Come back, we'll talk about it. Was blowing my horn since the day I was born, and nobody wanted to know. And there you have it. The band stuff is pretty similar overall. It's got some extended jam bits, a great guitar solo. Brian rips through it here. It's really the one thing to talk about is Freddie's vocals. Freddie's vocals makes it much, much different. I know it's funny because I say how much I like the laid back version of it, but Freddie's voice does add something to it. It adds a little bit of I don't know, bluesy feel. It's kind of got when he goes up the octave, it gets a little more emotional about it. It gets a little more powerful in his register. I love when he starts taking it up the octave. It kind of comes back down, plays around. It becomes an actual live track playing off the audience, which seems to be into it. I'm not sure why they decided not to play this very long because it actually felt like it was a good crowd pleaser overall. Freddie seemed to have fun with it. The band got a chance to kind of loosen up and jam out a little bit on it. It's great. It's a great version. I do like this one a lot. I'm very excited that we got this in in 2017 for sure. Great version. All right, we got one more version to listen to. See which ones are my crown jewel. The best version is going to go on the Ultimate playlist. This one is an unreleased version. That's why you'll have that to get through. Obviously, it's not the greatest recording in the world. It's a bootleg. On the YouTube link, it's live in Groningen in 1998. Brian at this point has become very, very good at fronting a band. He had some issues back when he first started fronting a band, not knowing what to do. He still never fully ever felt comfortable. But I think by Another World, he was really much better than he was during the Back to the Light tour as far as comfortability goes. And when the crowd was hot and the crowd was being good to him, then he would slip something like this into the set list. Not too often, not too often. So, all right, click on that. We'll come back. We'll talk about it. All right, like I said, it's not the greatest recording. You have to get through the YouTube, the bootleg sound. Obviously, not an official release of sound, but the track itself rips. I gotta say, I think I'm gonna say probably won't make my crown jewel only because we don't have a great recording of it. But the guitar is probably the best that Brian does. I mean, Brian's had a few more years to work on it. It really rips his solo here. They have this nice, cool extended jam before they get into it. The Cozy Powell does a great job of the drums. It's Neil Murray here on the bass who does pretty well. I don't double check on that. But it's a fine version, closer to the original version. Obviously, Brian's vocals are pretty much straight on at that point. It's such a fun piece. It's a fun live piece. I still think they should do it more often. They don't, and I can't quite understand why. All right, let's get right to it then. We're going to rank the versions, find out which is my crown jewel, and see what slides into my top 10. I have to rate the song between 1 and 11, because we always turn out to 11 here on PLD Projects. All right, let's get right through it. From lowest to highest, we have number 3. That's where I'm going to put the Groningen from 1998, mainly because of the sound recording. I wish I had a full officially released version of that. It'd be nice to have for the collection. Unfortunately, we don't. Great version, but for a crown jewel, I wanted to hear it really well. So you really got to hit a home run with a bootleg sounding type track to make a crown jewel for me. For you, it might be different. Maybe when I was younger, about 20 years younger, I could listen to bootlegs a lot easier and not complain as much. My hearing is not as good as it was. Probably as I get older, that might be part of it. That's why it's going to be number 3, which means which one do I prefer? Is it going to be the album version or live in the USA? And as much as I love the album version, I think I have to go with Live in the USA. I got Freddie singing, and Freddie always is going to sing tracks better for the most part. I got to say, if I have ever a choice between Freddie, Brian, and Roger, I'm usually going to go with Freddie. There are the rare occasion where I will take Roger, and there's even a rare occasion, depending on the kind of song that Brian sounds a little better on. In this case, though, in a rock and roll type song, even if it's a laid back bluesy number, give me Freddie's voice anytime. No offense, Brian, I love you, but Freddie is Freddie Mercury for a reason. So that's my crown jewel, live in the USA. Of course, I have the links in below for the Spotify playlist and everything else. I don't believe Live in the USA is on Spotify anymore. The box set was on Spotify for a little bit, but it hasn't been for a while. So I'll have to default to the album version on YouTube. That's why I have a YouTube music, so I can add my own songs to the list here. That's why on YouTube and everything else, and for my real official crown list ranking, it will be Live in the USA. Now, as far as 1 to 11, we're going to rate the song. I'm going to give it, let's see, I gave it a last one. I think I gave Get Down, Make Love. I want to say I gave that a 5. Yeah, I got it a 5. This is definitely better than that. I think I'll give this one a 6.5. I like it as daring. It does something a little different from Queen than the usual. So at the end of the day, yeah, 6.5 will cover it. That means it's not going to slide to my top 10. It's been a long time since you've slid anything into the top 10, because my top 10 are all at 11, 10.5. 10.4 is my lowest. Number 10 is the love of my life, and that's a 10.5. So you got to get 10.5 or higher to fit into the top 10. So who knows when it's going to happen again? Who knows? But all right, well, that will do it for us this week. Thank you so much for sticking around for this one. Hopefully you enjoyed it. Hopefully you'll come back for more. You'll come back for next week. Next week, a John Deacon reggae-ish track. Who Needs You? Reggae? Queen? Kinda, sorta. All right, thanks guys so much. If this is your first time here, click that like, that subscribe. Jump over to my main YouTube channel, PLD Projects, for some great TV and film content, and click and subscribe there. If you want to help even further, patreon.com/PLD Projects. You can join a bunch of cool people like Austin Cadell, Brendan Buckingham, Jeff Alterman. Got a great crew over there, and I really respect and appreciate them. They do so much for me, really help me put lights on, and really help me put stuff out like this. But if you can't, I get that completely, but you can still want to help, share it. Let us know. Let people know we're out there. Tell your fellow Queen fans. Let me know what you think in comments. Comment on it. I like to talk Queen. I like to hear from people who listen. Hopefully you're enjoying it. If you're not, let me know why not. Maybe I can do something different. Maybe I can help shake it up a little bit. Who knows? But yeah, so that'll do it for this week. I will see you next week. Until then, don't go sleeping on the sidewalk. Gotta save the theater. Bye.